And in other news, across the country, Brazilians are glued to their television sets as the Supreme Court begins to issue its verdict in the trial against former President Bolsonaro. Here's our correspondent Brian Muir with the details.
Final deliberations are underway in Brazil's Supreme Court on the 3-year-long investigation against former President Jair Bolsonaro and 7 of his cronies for allegedly plotting and attempting to implement a military coup after the former president failed to win his re-election bid in October 2022. What this means in practical purposes is that for the next 2 days, all 5 justices of Brazil's Supreme Court First Working Group are going to state their cases, make their arguments, cast their vote, and justify the vote in a process that should last a couple of hours for each justice. All that is needed for a conviction of Bolsonaro or any of his cronies is a 3-2 vote. It's important for Brazil because it's the first time in over 130 years of multiple attempted and successful military coups that generals in the army are being formally accused of attempting to implement coups. General Augusto Heleno, who was the Minister military director during the Sitsole massacre in Haiti and is a staunch supporter of Brazil's far right, together with General Walter Braga Neto, Bolsonaro's former defense minister and vice presidential candidate in 2022, are both facing possible prison sentences of over 40 years. This is something unprecedented in Brazil. It's never happened, and some people are wondering if it's going to happen because as the action unfolds in the Supreme Court, there's a lot of wheeling and dealing going on in Congress as 2 of the largest political parties in the country, the PP and the União Brasil, have left the governing coalition to side with Bolsonaro's Liberal Party and attempt to push through an amnesty deal, which would essentially represent get-out-of-free cards for Bolsonaro, the 7 cronies standing trial with him today, and everyone else who's been accused of plotting this coup attempt, totaling a number of 32 people. So the court is saying, some people in the court have told journalists off the record that they'll veto it, they'll cancel if they try to do it, but it means there's going to be a lot of political tension this week, with the final ruling supposed to come out tomorrow night, and if anyone is declared guilty, sentencing issued on Friday, September 12th.
And we continue going over some international reactions. The group of Friends in Defense of the Charter of the United Nations issued a statement condemning the escalation of hostile actions and threats of the government of the United States against Venezuela. The statement begins by saying that the group of Friends in Defense of the Charter of the United Nations echoes the deep concern of a large number of states from Latin America and the Caribbean regarding the recent deployment of U.S. military forces to this region, including assets with nuclear capability, in a direct escalation of hostile actions and threats against the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. It continues by saying that the member states of the group of Friends in Defense of the UN Charter recall in this context the special communiqué issued on August 16, 2025, and reiterate their condemnation and categorical rejection at the threat of use of force against the sovereignty, territorial integrity, and political independence of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. It concludes by stating that the group of Friends in Defense of the UN Charter reaffirms its unwavering solidarity with the people and government of Venezuela, a fellow and founding member of our grouping, and urge the government of the United States of America to de-escalate its actions and rhetoric in the Latin American and Caribbean region, including against Venezuela, and to scrupulously respect its obligations under international law. Welcome back to From the South. We continue with more information, in this case, to the ongoing genocide in Palestine, as the Palestinian Islamic Resistance Movement Hamas confirmed on Tuesday that its leaders had survived the Israeli attack on the Qatari city of Doha, but 5 of its members were killed in action. According to Hamas, the son of the group's ex-Gaza chief, Khalil al-Hayya, was among the fatalities. The Islamic group and the Qatar's Ministry of the Interior also confirmed the deaths of a member of the Qatari internal security forces. On the other hand, Qatar called the attack a violation of all international laws and norms and stressed that Israel's action represents a threat to national and regional security. It also affirmed that it will not tolerate Tel Aviv's conduct and continued disruption of regional security. We continue with more information. In Brazil, the investigating judge Alexandre de Moraes requested on Tuesday that former President Jair Bolsonaro be convicted of the 5 crimes that he is charged with, which could result in a minimum sentence of 12 years and a maximum one of 43. Moraes became the first Supreme Court justice to vote on the case after a 5-hour speech where he defended his position and presented the evidence on which he based it. The justice affirmed that Brazil almost returned to a dictatorship because of a criminal organization led by Bolsonaro, who he said did not know how to lose an election. The far-right former president is charged with the crimes of attempting to violently abolish the state, coup d'etat, membership of a criminal organization, damage to public property, and damage to protected heritage. Precisely in this regard, Supreme Court Minister Flavio Dino rejected the threat made by the Trump administration against Supreme Court justices with the aim of pressuring them to declare the former President Bolsonaro innocent of all charges.
I'm amazed that anyone could imagine that the person who has risen to the position of Supreme Court Minister could be intimidated by a tweet. Are there really people who think that a tweet from a foreign authority, from a foreign government, can change a Supreme Court ruling? Is there really anyone who thinks that blocking a credit card or Mickey Mouse can change a court ruling?
Minister Flavio Dino agreed with Minister Alexandre de Moraes in his ruling, joining him in condemning the defendants for the 5 crimes with which they were charged: attending a coup, the violent abolition of the democratic rule of law, qualified damage to public property, damage to listed heritage property, and acting in and leading an armed criminal.
Demonstrations continued in Nepal Tuesday after the government's short-lived ban on social media sparked increasingly violent protests on Monday, which left at least 25 people dead. According to local authorities, the number of injured reached 500 in the capital city of Kathmandu and other districts of the country. The widespread youth-led protest caused structural damage to state buildings such as the parliament and the Supreme Court. The unrest caused the resignation of the nation's Prime Minister Khattar Prasad Oli amid widening criticism of the country's political elite. However, tens of thousands of protesters remained on the streets late in the day, blocking roads and storming government facilities, while army helicopters ferried some ministers to safe places. And we continue in Venezuela because the Bolivarian National Armed Force denounced a new campaign by the ultra-right to create destabilization and anxiety among the population regarding the United States military presence in the Caribbean Sea. The Venezuelan Navy stated that through a perverse campaign on social networks